Hello, hello.
And here we are. Hi, Jules.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. We
Good.
are back. We are on episode 14 of this Live Happily Ever Awesome, our series with Julie Rappaport, PACT-certified couples counselor. And this week we are talking about money.
Money, 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 money.
I feel like this is a big one that causes a lot of problems with couples.
It can be.
Yeah. Um, Here's a question for you. Joint accounts or not joint accounts?
Well, there's no like cookie cutter, I mean, joint accounts just really does show, hey, what's mine is yours. And um, so it tends to lend itself to more what we call a secure functioning type of relationship regarding money.
Mhm.
Um, Separate bank accounts that can work too. It's just they have to be clear of what's coming out of where and um, how they're going to run things.
So it's more of just as long as, I mean, I would assume as long as you both agree either way, it's probably fine.
Um, yeah, I would say that's generally true. It's just hard to, let's if you own a house together, are you paying 50-50 mortgage? Are you paying 50-50 groceries? Are you paying 50-50? I mean, like how do you do that in a really streamlined way when maybe one person is the one doing the groceries shopping and the other person, I don't know, or it's more complicated, I would say,
Yeah.
that way. Um,
I would think so too if incomes are different, right? If there's a big variability in incomes and one partner is making a fraction of what the other partner's making, but they're married and committed and or not even married, but in a committed relationship, who pays for what? That seems a little maybe a little weird. I remember when I was a kid, I used to babysit for kids down the street, and the parents would they had separate accounts, and it was very awkward when it came time to pay me because they would have like these little arguments about who was paying me this time around or something, and like, oh, I thought this was from your account and that's going to be in my account and I'm going to pay today and whatnot. So, yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting.
it does get, and that oftentimes is getting back to one earns more than the other. Sometimes, that each one has certain expectations on the other, of how things are going to go. Maybe one person is like, I make a third of what you make, so I should only have to pay a third of things. And
Mhm.
maybe the other person is thinking, well, I make, two-thirds more than you do, and so therefore I get to um, buy two-thirds more than you do. Or,
So,
like whatever, there's just these inherent things that get played out around money. So, money, money is the topic of today, but money, if people come in and talk about money, it's, it's, it's never really about money, to be fair. It's something else getting played out around money, something else getting played out around sex, something else getting played out around kids, something else getting played out around, there's like 5 or 6 things that are kind of the main things that people come in with. And it's never, of course, there is the issue at hand, but it's usually a symptom of something, of some greater cause.
something else, yeah. Um, my vote for non-joint accounts would be in the instance where you want to surprise your partner with something. And it's really hard to do that when everything's combined, right? And you both have the same Apple ID and you both have the same Amazon login, and anytime you try to order something, it's like they're going to see it anyway, kind of a thing. It's almost like you have to have cash on hand or a separate account just for things like that, and then they ultimately would perhaps raise suspicion of like, well, what else are you spending on that, or doing or having, or I have a credit card and we both have access, but my partner has a credit card and I don't have access to that. And like, he makes more
Yeah,
money than me, but like, what's he spending his money on? And do I have a right
right.
to transparency into that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic of conversation. I mean, you you kind of think joint accounts, and then I want to surprise my spouse or my mate. But if we're having a joint account, like I'm there, the spouse or mate is helping pay for the surprise,
Right.
like that. And then if there's a separate account, like that's more of the surprise. But ultimately, of course, it comes down to trust and in the relationship of, if they have this separate account, do you trust that they're not being shady about things? And
Right.
that would just, of course, point to other things that need to be shored up in the relationship, where if you're like, what else are you doing with that money?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I almost think too, with the sharing of the money too, it's kind of like a generosity thing. I don't know. In my prior relationships, I've been the person that made more money. I've been the person that made less money. And when you're in a committed relationship, to me, it's kind of like, this is our money. We're building a life together, and if you contribute more and I contribute less or whatever, like, who cares? Like, I can see maybe like investment accounts and things in the future maybe being, in somebody's name or someone else's name, and having a percentage of their income, be attributed to it because it's bigger or smaller. But I just feel like day-to-day stuff, it's like, we're going to make decisions together to spend the money or not spend the money. And it's whether we have it or not. It's not whether I have it or you have it. I don't know. That's just,
Well, you have to think about the different attachment styles, and um, that if somebody is raised to, they have to take care of themselves and they have to watch out for number one, and nobody else is going to. And what it would mean then to them to give, like they've got some money and they don't, what would it mean to them to share it? Like, that means less for them, which then
Mhm.
means I can't take care of myself, which then means I'm fucked, you know.
There's some anxiety, maybe. Yeah.
And just also, like, I work, and then there's a like self-righteousness. I worked hard for this money, and why should I share it with you? Um, islands tend to think a little bit more like that.
Mhm.
Um, they just tend to be a little bit more looking out for themselves because they had to be. And so a little bit, they tend to be a little bit more possessive of their things. Um, it's kind of like, this is mine. They have a
Mhm.
harder time sharing. Whereas waves tend to have an easier time, like, oh yeah, you can do that, no problem, what's the big deal?
Yeah. So Yash brings a point here. You can also contribute non-financially to a relationship if one earns more than the other. I see that, but that also feels like I have to do more in other ways because I don't make as much money.
Right.
And that doesn't feel good to me.
No, that's, I mean, just because you don't make, it's like, let's say the two of you are, you're doing your life's passion, and it's like, you are super happy, and one of you is wanted to always just be a barista, and loves it, loves interacting with the people, loves making fancy drinks, loves, whatever that is. They love coffee, and that they just come alive there. And then the other person loves um, to manage people, to run a company, they're entrepreneurial, and they are making seven figures, right? And the barista, of course, is never going to make seven figures.
Mhm.
Um, like if you have a secure functioning relationship, that it just shouldn't even matter, right? It's like you're both doing what you love to do. You are functioning well as a couple in terms of where your financial place in the world, and nobody owes anyone anything. There's no owing in a secure functioning relationship. And how do the two of you want to divvy things up is really up to the couple. I mean, maybe it's the more traditional um household where it used to be, where the men would go out and work and the women would cook and clean and take care of the kids, and that was kind of their exchange, and it worked for them. But we're in a totally different paradigm at this point, where you know couples need to be a little bit more sophisticated in terms of what the rules are, how are they going to divvy things up, how are they going to uh, how are they going to run this household based on money and based on everything else. There's nobody owes anyone anything if you don't make the same amount.
Yeah, and I think to clarify what Yash was saying more about, like if someone's working long hours, and then the other person's maybe stay at home or whatever, that maybe they pick up the slack at home and do those kinds of things. That makes sense to me.
Sure.
But sort of trying to make up for lack of income in other ways doesn't seem healthy to me.
No, I
Um,
mean, making up for it while somebody's at work, I mean, that's running a household, right? You've got
right.
to do that.
That's just an unpaid job,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
That hopefully both people are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. How about do you come across a lot of resentment sometimes with couples when there's maybe a disparity in income, or let's talk about maybe a disparity in spending, right? Because I would imagine, like we're talking about earning right now, but and let's just jump to spending. I imagine spending is a really hot topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's there, yes, in terms of resentment, but it gets played out through the money, right? It's like, and that's the kind of what I was talking about, is sometimes when one individual makes more money, then sometimes they feel justified in spending more money, or there could be resentment, like, and that could cause resentment for the person who doesn't earn as much money, of like, well, then they feel like they have to ask permission
Right.
to like spend money, or they feel like, I shouldn't spend money because I don't make as much money, um, or vice versa, where the person who doesn't make as much money is going out and spending a lot of money, and the person who makes more money is like, dude, I make this money and you just go spend it. So again, if you kind of zoom out, bird's eye view of it, you've got to look at, what is this couple playing out around money, right? Like, this is like, what agreements do they have of how they're going to run this money show, and what power differential are they playing out, um, and are they co-CEOs of this relationship, or is one person the CEO and the other person is their employee? You know, it's it's just, if you just look at the money, like, what I don't want to be as a therapist is somebody who's helping them um, deal with logistics, right? Like, that can be done anywhere, but
Mhm.
what can't be done anywhere is how they're running their relationship in terms of um, money could just be one, it shows up as one example, and what can be redone such that it functions more smoothly, more as a team, um, more of I've got your back, you've got mine, equal power, and something that feels fair for both of them.
So, what would be your recommendation for somebody who is feeling resentment towards another spouse, maybe for spending more than maybe they earn, or that frustration? And it's stereotypically, I'm gonna throw a stereotype out there, like the guy is angry at the wife because the Amazon boxes are piling up at the door, and he's like, "What the hell are you buying? Like, what do we need? What's going on?" Um, what kind of things do you dig in with there?
Well, I mean, I think you got to look at, are they communicating? In that example, is the wife or the woman talking with the man about, hey, we're needing XYZ, whatever, or have they had this arrangement where she's in charge of the house and the household things, and so these household things are coming, so she wouldn't have to negotiate with him or talk with him about it, and he's just getting overwhelmed with the amount of things that are coming. Like there's so many there's so many scenarios that could be in place.
Mhm.
But I think what you're speaking to is kind of more what might be more on the lines of more frivolous spending.
Yeah.
Um, in which case, is what's going on for her that she feels like she can just go ahead, right? She can just do that, and there wouldn't be any talking about it, or there's some sort of like I have some entitlement. There's some entitlement there. And so you've got to look at what happened in her past around money, her upbringing around money. What was did she always get what she wanted? Was she spoiled? Or was she completely deprived, in which case now she's making up for it? Like, what is getting played out there? And then
Mhm.
for him, is he more miserly? Is he more what does money mean to him? How was he raised around money? And have them really talk about, like, hey, how do they want to run this? How do they want to do it so that it works for both of them? Because it's how it's going is not working, at least for him. And so they can't keep doing it this way. Otherwise, they're going to continue to run into problems.
Yeah. Okay. What about large purchases? How do we feel about a spouse going out and buying a car, for instance, and just bringing it home, being like, "Hi, bought a new car."
I mean, if it works for the couple, right? If that's how
Mhm.
they run things, then okay. But if there's upset about it, then it doesn't work well. So then they have to negotiate. Okay, listen, anything over X amount, we discuss with one another, and if it's under, if it's $200 or more, we talk with one another before doing that, and if it's under 200, we have the right to just go ahead and you know
Mhm.
buy the item. Um, but that happens quite often in therapy, where I come across somebody who just kind of thinks they can buy big items and
Right.
not matter.
Yeah.
And it's usually that person is more of the kind of Peter Pan type. I don't want to grow up.
Mhm.
I want to get what I want to get when I want to get it. And the other one is having to be the responsible one and feeling resentful that that they don't really have the luxury to like buy X, Y, or Z because their partner continues to do that. And so, then it's working with the one who is going and spending all the time is saying, I'm going to go out and spend, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars without asking you. And you can do the same.
Mm.
Right. It's like kind of, I would prompt them to say that to their partner, and they would not want to say that to their partner because they don't want that for their partner. Because,
Right.
and ultimately that's going to drain their bank account. So then they realize the ridiculousness of what they're doing without consulting.
Yeah. So Elise gives us a story about a couple. The mom went out and paid cash for 2 new cars for their teen twins, $30,000 ish, without even mentioning it to the husband. Oh wow! I'd be curious to know if the woman was the breadwinner or was working or not. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Can you imagine having twins and having to get 2 cars?
Feel like you're sharing.
Right? Yeah. Agreed.
Here's an e-bike for both of you. No, but I mean, that just for me, I'm like, you have to look, money and power are so tightly related
Mhm.
that, that's seems to me like that's a power move, right? Like, I'm going to go do this, and I don't want you. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't want you to say no, or I'm afraid that you're going to say no. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And then, even if you get mad at me, at least I got what I wanted.
Ask for forgiveness and not permission.
Right. Right. And, great, you get what you wanted, but ultimately you got, it's like you created more problems.
Mhm.
And, I do know a couple. They are not what, PACT terms secure functioning at all.
Okay.
But it seems to work for them. I mean, they don't communicate, like they're both, breadwinners, but they don't talk about purchases ever.
Mhm.
He goes and does his thing and tells her he's, went and did this, and it seems to work for them, but
Yeah. I
it's
know.
not a relationship I would want.
Yeah, I know, in the past when I was working full-time in corporate and, my husband, we were making about the same amount of money. We operated that way, sort of. We just kind of, spent what we needed to, bought when we needed to. Everything was joint, and everything else. But, there was one time when he went and bought a car, and it wasn't that he couldn't buy the car. It was more about the terms under which he bought the car that I would have maybe done differently or appreciated an insight on, or had counseled him differently.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it signifies just more, if you have more like two islands in a relationship, um, separate accounts makes a lot of sense for them.
okay,
They like it that way.
you function better.
Yeah. If you have two secure functioning individuals, that they would never even consider that. They'd be like, of
That's
course
right.
it's we joint,
Yeah.
Um, so, but there's, again, like there's just things that power gets played out around money. Not wanting to grow up or wanting to be taken care of, or, all of that gets played out around money. Different expectations, how we were raised as kids around money, and it all just gets played out. It's just such a, I don't know what the word is, but it's good fodder for everything to get played out on.
Yeah, for everything else.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning too that it's not usually the money piece of it isn't really the problem. It ends up being all those other things. It's just a symptom of.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, you don't ever want to just not address the actual what the couple is bringing in. You don't want to be like, well, this isn't about money.
Right.
You have to address that thing, but you have to skillfully talk about the thing that's underneath it, probably first, in order to then, you resolve that thing first, of like, say it's a power dynamic of how they want to run this thing, and talk about power. And then you could bring back in, okay, now that you're going to have equal power, how do you then want to tackle the thing you brought in with money?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. So Elise says that she thinks it's a red flag when married couples have separate accounts. I tend to agree with you there. I think it depends on maybe someone's prior situation. If they've gotten burned in the past, and that a lot of people are on their second marriages now, and not just their first marriages. And I think um, some people think that red flag. Wait, what does Josh say? Red flag. If she initiates a divorce and I do nothing, she gets half at least. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's super cut and dry if you have joint accounts, but
Yeah.
obviously people have access to your money. They can take it if they want.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's more complicated, I believe, and this comes from more personally versus professionally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we live in a more patriarchal society with a history where men make more money than women. We're a history that men have more power than women. We're a history of women have had to fight a little bit harder for things. And so, because of that kind of oppression of women that's happened, there is this part of me, and being a woman, I have to, just speak that I am biased, but, women having a little bit more freedom, having a separate account for them, at least where the society is right now, I think I don't think it's a red flag per se. I think, it can be a red flag, but if a woman or the couple have separate accounts, it's not necessarily that I'm kind of thinking, I'm talking two things at once.
Sure.
One is, you know, I know that there are women that get divorced that are like, I need to have this separate account so that I know I can get myself back on my feet, or have left, bad relationships that, they need this safety net. So, not relying on the man kind of thing of this old paradigm. So I think that we're not quite out of that paradigm enough to say you shouldn't have a joint account, especially to a woman, or you shouldn't have a
separate
account, especially to a woman. However, again, it really depends on how the couple is running it. It's not a red flag if it works really well for them and there's no issues. Like, who are we to say that it's a red flag? Like,
and there's something to be said for separate accounts where you can still have transparency into the account. You can have the username and password and see what's happening in it. It's not your money to use, and you respect that. But
or you could each have separate accounts and a joint account where
Right.
that works really well too. It's like, oh, each one of us wants our own money to be able to
Play
do
around.
X, Y, or Z. And then, but if it comes out of the joint account, we talk about it, and we, like that can work really well.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. What else?
What else?
Can we talk about last week?
Oh,
and how awesome that was? Jackson Jan?
I had one person I know reach out to me, said they enjoyed the session, or the last week's episode. But they thought they were way too functional for them.
They were pretty self-aware.
Yeah, they were pretty functional.
Yeah, pretty self-aware, but it was still interesting. I still saw some things that you could dig into perhaps. But yeah, that was really cool. Now, do we think we're going to get them back on the show, or are we looking for other couples to come on? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would love to get some other couples if they're interested, and just, again, just help the couple to think of things differently, but also be able to help other people that are in relationships or are going to get into relationships that, hey, this is normal. We don't, kind of going back to our first episode of like rom-coms of like, hey, everybody has stuff in their relationship, and to think that you don't is fantasy, or that you won't is fantasy. And that normalizing that and kind of letting people learn from one another. it's a really, you know, that's why group therapy is so helpful and expedites healing so much, is because we all realize we're not alone and we can learn from one another. And so I just really encourage people, if they're have any inkling, that it'd be really helpful for everybody.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of like premarital counseling?
I think we talked about this before. Not a lot, not
Okay.
a lot.
Probably not enough for
Not
what
enough.
people need,
Yeah.
right? Is that what you mean by that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, most of my work is intervention rather than prevention.
Mhm.
Um, it would be great if there was more prevention, but I think that, you know, I think it's shifting in terms of couples work, that couples work used to be really sought after if you had something wrong in your
Mhm.
relationship. And it's slightly starting to shift where people could come just to make sure they've got things, a solid foundation, and make something good that into great.
Yeah.
But it's not quite there. And so people still come when the shit's hitting the fan.
Right. Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got some ideas for future episodes in addition to hopefully having another couple, either Jan and Jack's back on or some other new couple. We threw around some ideas. I'm just going to read off the ones that you and I texted back and forth. We talked about addiction,
Yeah.
where we considered talking about addiction, sex.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be huge. Multicultural issues,
Yeah.
blended families, and polygamy, right? Or polyamory.
Polyamory, polygamy, polyamory, open
That's
relationships, polyamory,
okay.
sensual non-monogamy, ethical non-monogamy. They're all
Wait, say that again. Sexual, and then ethical, or sensual?
consensual.
Oh, consensual.
So let's just put out, where are you in the country, Kat?
I'm in Delaware.
Delaware.
Yeah, I don't live near Utah.
Um, and so in Delaware, what's the political climate like?
Oh, we are a very, very, very blue state. Very democratic.
Okay. And are, you know, same-sex marriages like abound? And
Yes.
what about open relationships?
I'm noticing that they are more prolific than I ever thought. But I don't know if that's a Delaware thing. Like,
Okay.
I don't know if it's like a regional, local thing necessarily.
Well, I say that just because, you know, I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and, you know, we are extremely liberal.
Mhm.
And you know, it's just such and you know, just to say that, you know, with PACT and teaching this stuff, we teach it globally. And you know, just talking like, if monogamy is not the norm anymore, I don't know if it's abnormal, but it's
Mhm.
certainly you cannot assume that anymore. People are really advocating a lot for open relationships, consensual non-monogamy, and like, how do we talk about this stuff? How do we normalize this? It's not, you know, it's not,
Taboo.
yeah, it's not like it's abnormal. It
Mhm.
it's actually been around for quite a long time. And monogamy is a newer idea.
Right. It's more of the
Yes.
modern philosophy. Yeah.
So
Interesting.
anyway, that's
Okay.
I'm certainly not an expert in that topic. It's not like a specialty of mine, but it's certainly
Mhm.
something that we as couples therapists have to be adept at handling.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, we'll put some surveys out if people want to comment on the YouTube production of this on subjects that they want to hear. And I do think we have a couple folks in our DMs that we can reach out to too in terms of getting couples back on.
Awesome.
So we'll work on that as well. But as always, it's fun to talk about, and my eyes get opened every time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, take us home here. I'll see you guys later.